Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Iowa. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert, right here in the Cats and Dogs studio. And we have a new soundboard. There's no background hum. It is a miracle. Zach, it's a miracle.
A Christmas miracle?
Oh, it's a Christmas miracle. Gills, do you believe in miracles?
I do.
Okay, well, you got a job with me. That's pretty close. We're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. They will make your holiday wishes come true if they involve party needs. And whose holiday wishes, you know what I'm saying, doesn't involve a little booze and a little party paraphernalia, such as mix and cups. I think they have cups and all that good stuff. The Fridge Wholesale Liquor, it's right up the street from me. You take one left turn, one right turn at the Bad Taco Place. My apologies to the bell. And then turn into their parking lot. That's how close they are. Well, there's a couple more turns in there. I lied. But Michael Bishop.
Left, right, left.
Michael Bishop could
sit down.
Probably hit it on the fly with the ball. That's also a lie. Anyhow, go to the Fridge whenever you're in town. I don't know when the next home game is. Is it Chico State?
Why do you keep saying Chico? Chicago State.
Is it Chicago?
Yeah, Chico State is a Division II baseball powerhouse.
That's why I know them.
That's where Sully Ingles played baseball.
Chico State. Maybe it was abbreviated on something. Chicago
I noticed
State.
you did that on the Insiders yesterday. I thought you were just being funny.
No, I'm not.
He was being dead serious.
You're clueless is what you are.
I am serious.
Ill-informed.
Just ill-informed. I just make stuff up. This is so weird not to have a hum in our ears. This might be a weird podcast. And we're kind of using part of the old setup because I have 1,000 cords, but not the one I need to run it into my computer properly. So we're doing something and all the balances are weird. Let's just move on. Nobody gives a crap about that. They want your questions from Wabash Station. Ryan Gilbert, take it away.
From AWint25, what are the chances that Avery Johnson changes his mind and enters the transfer portal if he's not happy with Connor Riley and the direction of the program after the bowl game?
0. Zero. Folks, quit worrying about this one. I mean, seriously, don't worry about Avery now. I mean, maybe into the future. Look, the way these schools are operating, if Avery's as good as we expect, we hope. That's a better word. We hope. And he puts up the kind of numbers in his sophomore season that we think he's capable of, the kind of explosive playmaking. It's not going to surprise me if an SEC school reaches out with a $5 million a year NIL. It's gotten to that point of absurdity in college sports. At that point, I don't know how a family says no, but this is Avery's decision. The Johnsons have made that clear. This is Avery's decision to make. And I'm not saying he'd turn down $5 million. I don't know. But he is so rock solid on K-State. It's not just about playing on a big stage and making a lot of money. He can do that at the next level. There's something that has really clicked with him about the K-State community and the opportunity to literally build a major college football program around him. This is a really mature, steady, level-headed kid. And a lot of the flash out there isn't going to necessarily grab his attention. I'm not going to say $5 million wouldn't, because let's be honest, Ryan Gilbert would be the host of the KU podcast, the Cleveland Browns podcast, and the Al Qaeda podcast if you give him $5 million.
Why do you do this to me?
I didn't mean that's one podcast. I meant all separate podcasts. That'd be a really
$5 million per?
No, just put together.
Okay.
I'm assuming one of them would give you like $3 million, and that'd be your main job, and your side gigs would be $1 million each. Let's be honest, probably Al Qaeda that give you the. Is that still an actual thing? Yeah. He would turn against his country for $1 million. I'm telling you, folks. So no, quit worrying about Avery. Sorry.
Jeez, lost my. You threw me off.
What, are you reading now?
Fitz
No.
is just so funny. I thought you were going to say from.
I was about to read a question. I'm trying to read the question here. If Connor Riley has a bad bowl game, I don't think Avery Johnson is going to be the one that's upset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think this is Connor Riley's. If Avery Johnson has a good bowl game, that means Connor Riley had a good bowl game. That means Connor Riley's going to stay here. They're going to have more good football games. If Connor Riley has a bad game, that probably means Avery had a bad game. Nobody's going to be happy with how the game went, and Connor Riley's going to be the scapegoat, and they're going to replace him with someone who's going to be
All right.
potentially make Avery happy. So
There's a
I'm not
reason
worried about this.
why Chris Kleiman hasn't hired his quarterbacks coach. Because does he need a quarterbacks coach, or does he need an offensive coordinator quarterbacks coach, or a co-offensive coordinator? It changes, because if you only need a quarterbacks coach and that's all you want, you're not going to get the guys that have been coordinators or want to be a coordinator. You have to give them something to get them here. So, yeah, this is Connor Riley's opportunity to call plays. He's going to be one of the offensive coordinator, whether it's multiple or simply one. He will be part of that. But will someone come in to be the quarterback's coach and call plays while Connor Riley has the title and assists him in a game prep? But as Chris Kleiman says, all the coaches function that way. There's no one sitting there and saying, we're going to do this, this, and this. All the coaches get together and decide on the game plan. So he's had an input in what they've been doing. He will continue whether he's calling the plays or not.
From Add to Cart Cat. I don't know if I've seen that name before.
You have.
Okay.
You have.
Just don't remember it. I'm so dumb. Name 2 players on offense and 2 players on defense that saw little playing time during the regular season that will get significant playing time in the bowl game.
This is good. I'm going to go with Trey Spivey at receiver. Since the line's coming back, that takes about half the positions. Do I want to be lazy and just say the tight ends will be much more active? Or a third tight end might hop into the mix.
Can I be lazier and say Avery Johnson?
Valid. Perfect. Defensively, I would say one of the young DNs will be in the rotation, certainly. You can kind of pick who you think.
Austin Moore was asked something along these lines on Friday when we talked to players, and he mentioned Jack Fabris as a guy that people should be looking out for. So that's one.
That's a safety.
Yeah.
They're not as upset about the function of the departure of Kobe Savage, of the actual player on the field. And that's not an insult to him. He's an outstanding player. They feel like they've got some young guys or can find someone in the portal to replicate what he was last season. He's not the same player after the knee injury. Still an outstanding player. Their problem is he's such a good leader. And losing that veteran voice that people trusted was a real shock to the system. He's probably, guys, the one that stings the most out of all the transfers. Not Will Howard, the starting quarterback, not Will Lee, who the mascot was apparently named after, and a starting corner. He's down the list. They're not worried about that. Nate Matlack is up there, but it's Kobe Savage. Yeah. It's the one that stings. So, I would go with that too.
Kleiman wouldn't say who was going to back up DJ Giddens now, but Joe Jackson might be the best guess. So he's not going to be the bona fide starter, but get 30-40% of the snaps. Why not?
I was so confused yesterday with the transfer portal stuff when there was a guy named the same thing as a running back that K-State recruited. And I'm like, I didn't even know he was in the portal. They're getting another running back? It was very confusing.
Guy.
I can't remember the guys. I have no brain left. It's like a potato right up there. It probably is lovely with some sour cream and
Travis Bates.
Travis Bates, thank you.
Yeah, I think running back and tight end are probably going to be the most interesting positions to see guys that we haven't really seen much play this year.
I agree. And we might see some young offensive linemen. If the game gets out of hand either direction, they might.
Correct. Yeah.
They might just look. If they get way behind, they might say, "The heck with it. Let's just let the guys play. They're going to lose. Let's let the guys play." I don't know how they'll approach this, but I'm intrigued.
Do you think they pull Avery if it gets out of hand?
Yeah, they might want to give
Knuth a little
playing time. Yeah, I mean he's probably going to be the backup next year, I would think. We'll see. They might put him out there anyhow. They might do some stuff.
Who knows?
Connor Riley's on addition here. He might have some fun with this stuff. We'll see. And what's interesting about that is this is a kid that's never played. They will have to identify him by his number coming onto the field, and maybe he lines up at wide receiver or something, and it just doesn't register with him because he will have zero film. Maybe they won't even know it's Avery because he wore number 5 and he's going to wear number 2. And they're like, who is that?
I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all.
See something like that?
No, just if the number changes just screwed everybody up, at least for a second. Like they didn't realize, hey, number change. We've watched number 5 play all year. Who's this number 2? Oh, that is number 5. Just piecing that together might take a second.
I'm staring at you.
Okay. That's my cue.
I'm staring at you.
From Bill Snyder, Clydesdale.
Still staring at you.
I'm going to ask the question now, okay?
Okay.
I hate to ask, but I heard Colin Klein made some pretty high demands for K-State to keep him here and then headed for Texas A&M. Is that true? Because it's hard for me to see Colin not being very straight up with Chris Kleiman and K-State that he's needing a career change / resume builder.
I haven't heard that. I would imagine the, quote, high demands would be, can you match this? We never have heard exactly what Colin's getting paid, but it was rumored to be doubling his salary. And the answer is no. I mean, could they? Yes, but at an expense. You know, K-State, with an extra $1 million in salary, could hire about 4 more, like, analysts, recruiting assistants, give everyone else a nice raise across the board. I mean, you could do a lot of things with that kind of money, and I just don't see K-State doing that. I don't think that their budget is tight. This is the biggest budget in the athletic department, but they have needs that are going unmet right now as we sit here. So making that kind of push into keeping one coach, and plus you have to look at it almost like the NIL in your locker room. Well, if you start paying Colin 1.6, I mean, Joe Klanderman's pretty laid back, but he's going to be going, what? Connor Riley's at a third of that is going to go, what? So it kind of throws everything out of whack.
Yeah. K-State. Whoa. Why are you bleeding? How did you just start bleeding?
I have no idea. Is it coming out of my nose or my chin?
It's on your chin.
I was like, something is wet on me.
People wonder why Gills listens to me. Sometimes he doesn't.
I have no idea. I don't have any pimples or anything. Nothing.
You don't.
No idea.
There's just blood coming out of his chin.
And you're not old enough to shave yet.
It's that time of the month.
See, with Colin, you saw what happened last year. You know that was going to become a yearly or twice a year type of thing. Hey, a top 20 offensive coordinator job. Forgive me for thinking Texas A&M is a top 20 coordinator job, but with the money that Texas A&M boosters have, it is. It is a top 20 job, and if they're throwing around money, you can't exactly say no. And if you present that offer to Kleiman or Gene and saying, hey, this is what another school wants to pay me, K-State just isn't in the position to do that. It's just the reality. K-State is a Moneyball type of athletic department, and that's not a diss. That's not a put down. It is what it is. K-State needs to spend their money in their athletic department smartly compared to a lot of and give credit to Gene for running a very fiscally healthy department and taking good care of the outlook, especially in over the last 24 months of college football realignment, and just you didn't know where K-State was necessarily going to be. You didn't know what the TV contracts were going to be. You didn't know 2 years ago that the Pac-12 was going to completely unravel in the way that it did. There's been a K-State, Gene has steadied the ship through these rough waters, and now we see these calmer waters. You see that K-State's made it. They're safe. Maybe in the next couple of years you can start paying your assistant football coaches more, competing, a little better. But Joe Klanderman and Colin Klein are right around the 100th highest paid coach in the country. They're both equal at, I think it was $825,000. I think Connor Riley was at $600,000, and those are your three top coaches. But you're not even cracking the top 100 assistant coaches. And K-State sees the success they had. They went 8-4 this year. They went 10-4 last year. There's good value there, and is paying your assistant coaches, your coordinators, more money. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And I don't know if it is.
Wow.
I like that. Yeah, it's not worth the squeeze. I get that. As a guy who likes to put a little lemon in the drink.
A little lime in the Pacifico.
A little lime in the Pacifico, a little lemon in the Citron. Is the juice worth the squeeze? No. There's just some realities here. Kansas State in the current environment is not going to match the dollars of an Alabama or even an A&M. We've seen it happen with Michigan State.
That's where you get it when a school gets it wrong. They spent so much money and they got it wrong. Would you rather spend a bunch of money and get it wrong, or spend what K-State spends right now? They get it right, and then you lose some guys every once in a while. I mean, it's the reality. And Connor Riley, whether you like it or not, was going to leave at some point. If he doesn't get this job, he's probably here for another year as the offensive line coach, but he'll probably go take an offensive line coach, get a raise somewhere else, take a coordinator job somewhere else, and get more money. I mean, it's just the reality here. Somebody was going to leave. There just isn't enough available spots, and there's talented coaches on this staff.
Right.
So, you can look at it. Yes, you lost Colin, but you kept Connor Riley, at least for now. But if you kept Colin, you're probably losing Connor Riley at some point. So, you got to recognize the job progression of a lot of these guys. They're ready for bigger jobs and bigger challenges, and they're going to take them. It's just the reality.
It is. It really is. So, hey, Are you ready to do your job properly, or do I have to make you bleed some more?
Fitz whipped me. Caused me to bleed. I think I am going to go take that overseas job at that terrorist organization, unless you double my salary. Then I'll stay here, Fitz.
It's been good. We've had a good run.
From a hot dog cat, Chip Kelly made a good cause for the future of college football and athletics overall. How would you all rework college athletics in the future if given the opportunity?
Okay. I said this on one of the radio shows. I've always been opposed to the soccer model. I never understood how people thought it would work. Relegation, and promotion. Look, you're in a conference with someone. How would you not be playing at the same level? It never made sense to me. But what Chip Kelly said makes sense. It makes great sense in the fact that, okay, there's no more conferences for college football. You're simply in this organization. You're in a scheduling block, shall I say, Pod, with other teams in this 64-team level. These are your 8 main schools you'll play, and you'll play 3 others from, other places. You'll have 2 other games you can schedule. So relegation wouldn't impact the conference at all. The conference doesn't handle football anymore. The conference does all the contracts for basketball and everything else. I see it now. Here's my question, though. What happens to the TV contracts? Most of the TV contracts are currently money. And here's why it'll fail. Because if you're going to one block of 64 schools in that upper division, how are they getting paid? Would Kansas State or Purdue get the same as Alabama? Would Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, who else do I want to pick? Texas, USC, Notre Dame.
Not Florida State.
Would they want, those are the big attractions for TV rankings. Could they possibly ever approve something where all these other little guys, in their minds, are getting paid the same? Would making the playoff earn you a payout? Would winning the championship earn you a payout? And everyone else is kind of like on a base. But here's why it might work is, does that base then rise for schools not currently in the Big Ten and SEC? They'll vote yes. But if it lowers for those schools, they'll vote no. See what I'm saying? If they're getting $50 million a year for their rights, but now in the football thing, they're only going to get 35 because you've got all these other new schools, and maybe your conference's basketball rights won't close that gap. I see a lot of no votes. I like the idea. I don't think this idea will ever get enough votes.
If there's 64 seats at the table, you can find 64 schools that are going to want a seat, because right now there's more than 64 Power 4 schools. 20 plus 16 plus 16 plus 15. That's a lot of schools. And I'll say the Big 12 added 4 non-Power 5 schools when they last expanded. They increased the pool of power schools right now. I think there's a lot of schools that would say no. Boston College, is there any benefit for Boston College or Syracuse? Maybe Syracuse, but you get my point. There are some schools that are in power conferences right now that it probably would not benefit them, at least from a competition standpoint and a fan support standpoint.
And also NIL.
NIL, to play in the 64-team power football league, whatever you want to call it. But I, to your point, I think that you make a floor for everybody, and then everybody gets a minimum, and then you have a merit-based pool of money, and you go 1 through 64. Maybe you make it. It's probably like a PGA tournament. You give the champion the most money, they take half the purse, or what? Maybe not half the purse, but you get the point. They take a lot of the purse, and then you just go down the list, and they make millions and millions, and then then you get 1 million or whatever it is.
I think going with this, and I don't see how the schools would volunteer for this and want to do this from a fiscal standpoint because they're freeloading in many ways. There needs to be the equivalent of the Ivy League at this level. Stanford, Cal, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, Tulane, you can throw others in there, Duke. If academics is that important to you, and I'd love this to be put on the table. If academics is that important to you, here, these 8 schools, these 12 schools, however it works out, you thump your chest about academics. Here's your conference. Go play. Go play. But they won't, because at the end of the day, well, we want the money too. So, I love the idea. I just don't think it'll ever be approved. Gills, you got any thoughts over there? Or are you going to keep leading?
2 words.
Yeah.
I
disagree.
Agree.
Oh,
That's too bad. I think it would be fun though. If football went completely independent from a scheduling standpoint, right, and just you play 12 games a year. Whatever the minimum is for, you'll play a 12-game season. If you need to play 10 opponents in the 64, or whatever the requirement is, you just have an open table of standings. Whoever finishes in the top 12 or 16, however you want to do it, that's your playoffs. Easy.
And I think whatever oversees the 64-team league or conference, what would it be? Like collection? Probably needs to oversee the next step down too. And because we're talking about right now having 2 subdivisions of Division I, FCS, which is North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State. Those are the ones that keep winning the damn thing. And those schools that also are in the NCAA tournament because they're Division I. And then, of course, the schools that play football at a higher level, more financial investment, more scholarships. And, we're still talking about schools like Troy and Fresno State that aren't in a power conference. So that collection of schools, does the North Dakota States and South Dakota States move up to be in the middle? With the possibility, as their program builds, of being able to move up? I don't know. It'll be very interesting, but I would love to see it. One of the things I loved about his idea was there's no more scheduling. The athletic departments don't have to, like the NFL. Nobody in the NFL is trying to schedule games except for the NFL office. This would literally be, okay, we've grouped you into these 4 schools are together, 8 schools are together, however they want to set it up. You're going to play them. Everyone's going to play each other in that grouping. And now we're assigning you 3 opponents from other places. And we're going to assign you the 2 opponents from the lower division in your non-conference schedule. There wouldn't really be non-division schedule, subdivision schedule. And then those schools still have an opportunity to get paid for coming into stadiums. They still have an opportunity to prove themselves against this competition. And, they could move up. Now, there's be other standards there. North Dakota State's stadium isn't big enough. They'd have to address that probably. There'll be other criteria here that will impact things like, can you make the minimum payment of NIL? That's going to eliminate a lot of schools. In fact, if they set it high enough, they might struggle to get 64. I mean, if they set it at $6 million a year, okay. I mean, you're gonna get 70, 80 that want to do it. You set it $10 million, $15 million. That's how they're going to weed this out. You have to have a $15 million base NIL / payment system to your athletes a year.
See, I think if it comes down to this, where you group everybody together, you have 64 teams, I don't think there should be an NIL floor. There needs to be an NIL ceiling. I think that
the courts won't do that. The courts won't allow that.
I mean, essentially, you've got to professionalize, and you have to collectively bargain. You got to have a players' union, and you got to have a salary cap. If you want fair competition between the schools.
What Chip Kelly didn't say, and I think we all realize, you'll still have an FCS and FBS, and the upper division will be semi-professional football. And you as an institution, including Kansas State, need to sit there and think, do we really want to do this? Do we want to be involved in professional football, even if it's, quote, semi? Because let's be honest, if NIL's out there willing to pay a quarterback $1 million, $2 million for a season, you're not even semi. And now once you start stabilizing the bottom line, every player in your roster has to get to $100K. You're semi-professional football if you're not just flat out professional.
I mean,
a lot of troubling things here.
Yeah, you end a lot of things. You end walk-ons. You probably have a strict player roster of probably not even 85 scholarship players. You probably have 65, 70 scholarship players.
I think it goes the other direction. I think you just go to 100 or something.
Really? I think there'd be a lot more cost limiting.
Well, but you can't bring in players mid-season like the NFL if you have a rash of injuries or so.
At least, yeah.
And you want to still redshirt freshmen if that's even a thing anymore. I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts.
You can redraw a lot of the rules if you basically have everybody go independent.
My concern is they're going to go higher scholarship limits and start stockpiling all the talent and impacting the lower levels in that way. But it's going to get ugly. I mean, when you look at the transfer portal right now. How many players go into the portal and just disappear? We don't know where they end up. Maybe they end up at Division II or lower and NIL, and we don't even know they're playing, and then the portal never marked them. Imagine going into the portal if you're in this semi-pro league and you don't get a single offer. I mean, this is going to be impactful. Hey, I'm good enough to get $200,000 in another school, and you end up back in the FBS where you're not worth it. You're not getting that kind of money. We'll see. Do we have more questions in this half? Or is that it? That was it? That's it for the first half? You mean that the first half's over? You've stopped bleeding. I stopped talking. Zach's stomach didn't rumble. We're going to take a break and let all this happen. We'll be right back on the PowerCat Questions podcast.
GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast continues after this short break.
Getting the crew together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door. Which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Welcome back to the PowerCat podcast.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Questions podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert in the Cats and Dogs studio. Daphne circling, and she's down to lay down. It's time to begin. We're sponsored by The Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you check out The Fridge every time you're in town. They're just not our sponsor. I truly believe in this business. Quality people, quality service, great selection. I enjoy every trip I go in there, which sometimes doesn't involve buying anything. Sometimes I just am driving by and I pop in to say hi to everyone because these are really good people. Do business with The Fridge. I do. Zach doesn't really drink that much, but I'm sure he drinks a lot of stuff from The Fridge, but at other places. And Ryan Gilbert, I don't care about him. On with the questions from Wabash Station. These are our subscribers. And if you're not subscribing, you can do that right now. 60% off. It's kind of the offensive coordinator search special, but I think we're going to have to end it before there's one actually signed, because I think we're probably going to end it right after the bowl game. So go take care of that. If you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel, get on over and do that. Also, a lot of fun stuff going on over there. If you've never really kind of plugged into the YouTube environment, it's great programming. You can find some really cool stuff on YouTube. And we're doing live stuff. We're doing a lot of recorded stuff. Most of our podcasts now are appearing over there, except for this and part of the stuff I've been working on here in the studio with a new board and getting things set up. I'm preparing to have all of our podcasts be broadcast on YouTube. Probably not live because I need the edit button, right, Zach?
Yes, you do.
Okay. On with the questions of Wild Bass Station, and Zach's going to take over.
From Bill Snyder Clydesdale, is Nebraska that good, or did we just fall on our face and have that one really ugly game for the year?
What happened to the rule? Can you ask one football, one basketball?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know
That's been the rule.
Okay.
We didn't have very many questions this week either, so I actually had to use questions from each person.
Gills, I'll let you roll with this. Is Nebraska legit, or was K-State just extra stinky?
So Jerome Tang mentioned how there's 4 games a year where it doesn't matter who you're playing, you're going to lose because they just had that type of game. He also said there's 4 games a year that doesn't matter how you play, K-State, you're going to lose just having an off night. And so I think that's true for Kansas State. The ball wasn't going through the net. There seemed to be a lid on the basket. But as for Nebraska, that was not a dominant performance by any means. You could have easily beaten that team by playing a C+ or a B- game. And obviously they didn't. I'm not going to hit the panic button on this team just yet. It was just one bad loss. Now, if this happens again against Wichita State, sure. But, I think there is some truth to what Tang said. You're going to just have one of those nights. And Tyler Perry put it best. It's better to have this happen now in the middle of December than to have it happen in March. And so you get this one out of your system. And, Tang mentioned how Arthur Kaluma, all these guys, Perry, Carter, took a bunch of shots. They were good looks in his mind. They just didn't go in. And so that's who you want taking those shots if you're Tang. They said they'd be back in the gym getting shots up. So it was just one of those nights. I do believe that. Now, I think it could have been, the effort could have maybe been a little bit better here and there. And all that stuff. I think that Nebraska was maybe more locked in, and give Hoiberg a lot of credit. He played, his team played very well. Some of the schematics that they did, I know the coaches talked after the game about just the switches on the ball screens. You look at the beginning of that game, and Nebraska hit a couple of 3-pointers, and then K-State decided, to switch everything, and that took that away. And then after halftime, the Huskers just wouldn't attack the interior when K-State was doing that, and K-State didn't have the adjustments. So give Nebraska credit, but by no means did they play a game of basketball that was unbeatable.
I agree. I think Nebraska can be good. I don't think Nebraska played that well.
This could be Nebraska's year to win an NCAA tournament game.
They got to make the tournament first.
Man, you're getting crazy on this podcast. Do we need like the sound effects to bleep him out? Just right on the fly, just bleep him out. If he's going to say stuff like this, we can't have. What is going on? Are you okay over there? Are you having problems with the headphones now?
I had them in reverse.
Okay,
that doesn't matter though.
They kept sliding. They kept sliding off the back of my head. Jeez. God dang, man! I'm a mess today.
You are a mess. Look, I was impressed with some of the pieces Nebraska has, and I've always liked Fred Hoiberg as a coach. I absolutely hate their point guard. He's from Japan, right? That guy. Oh my god.
Tamanaga?
Oh my gosh, what a horrible player. I just watching him drives me crazy. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think they're potentially a pretty good team. But I guess the answer to your question is it's both. I think they're okay. I don't even think they were that good that night. That's how incredibly bad K-State was. But here's what won the game, and here's what Tang was upset with. It wasn't the shooting that decided the game. It was the effort things like rebounding and defense. Sometimes the shots don't go in. Go get the damn ball and put it in again. That's what Nebraska did. They beat K-State to death on the offensive boards and kept possessions alive. And eventually they just demoralized K-State because they were asserting themselves and playing harder. That's the worst part of the game, not the fact that they shot so incredibly poorly and scored 12 points and missed all 12 three-pointers in the second half. They just didn't work hard enough for it.
So this was something I outlined in my analysis piece after the game with David Gasson and his struggles offensively. I get it, and I think that he needs to stop trying to create his own points, bluntly put. He's not good at scoring right now. But you mentioned the rebounding fits. Kansas State, I think it was 57-40. I'd have to pull up the stat sheet, but K-State got out-rebounded badly in this game. And that would have been a hell of a lot worse if Gasson was not on the court. And so I get it. You don't want to see him out there because of his lack of scoring. I truly do get that. I think Tang needs to stop asking him to score. But his rebounding is invaluable.
And he does a lot of other things. They got to fix his free throws. I mean, come on. This is now just all mental.
You think Tang was lying? He said he made 300 free throws in practice before that game.
Then it's absolutely mental.
Shot 900 maybe.
Right? Over under 1,000 shots.
The question becomes, and I want to give a shout out to whoever was on Wabash Station who disagreed with my player of the game and my quick analysis of the game, because I really struggled and I got too focused on points and picked Cam Carter because he hit some key shots, but it was Michaela Bridge. Mm-hmm. 7 points. Yeah. I think he said they had 9 rebounds.
He flirted with the double-doubles quietly.
So we get to this point. Do they need to play him more?
And I tweeted something out about this Gasson argument, and people were saying Michaela Bridge.
Didn't give you the link to defend.
There could be some truth to that, but he's still very raw as a freshman.
I mean, if you put Michaela Bridge on the floor, you have to keep Gasson or McNair on the floor to defend the post. You just don't have enough size there to defend the post.
Yeah, offensively, you're fine. You can score with those 5, but defensively, you're going to get beat on the boards.
Right. It was not pretty.
From AWent25, after a poor shooting performance against Nebraska, what is your realistic expectation for the rest of the season?
Well, I'm not going to judge his team on that performance. I'm disturbed by that performance, but I want to see him Thursday night. Different court, different opponent, still better than this opponent. How do you react? Was that just a horrific shooting night? And the great confusion here is the disconnect between what Jerome Tang sees in practice and what happens on the floor. He was preaching this was a great shooting team. They had to adjust some of the measurements of shooting in drills because they were so good. And then we go to the games and we see, I would never consider this team at any point this year to be a, quote, great shooting team. They've been better in some games. They've been pretty good in some games, but never great. So maybe it's there, but I don't know. I need to see more, and I probably need to see them play Chicago State. Chico. And then we'll move on from there because then it's conference season and all hell break loose. If you're not ready to play, you're going to get humiliated.
Speaking of shooting, there were a few bright spots, Michaela Bridge being one of them, like you said, but Tyler Perry hit 3 3-pointers from in the first 20 minutes of that game, which I don't think he's done all year long. And so he cooled off in the second half. I get that, but maybe that's the first step to finding more consistency in his game. And then not to mention this game against Chico State, right, Fitz? That's going to be Quez Glover's first game back.
Chico.
I would maybe describe him as a pass-first guard more than anything, but he's certainly capable of playing at the 1 and the 2. Who knows if he gives this team a spark from deep? I'm not saying he will, but it's not going to hurt matters having Quez Glover come back here in a few weeks.
Next question is from Kevin316. Now that the dust has settled, do you have a more positive outlook of the future of K-State basketball than you did a week ago?
No. I mean, maybe I feel less. I feel the chances are less that he leaves, but don't get upset when I say this. I still think the odds are in favor of Jerome Tang leaving after this year. The underlying root cause of the issue isn't solved. Nothing is solved by ignoring it. Nothing is solved by looking the other way. Nothing is solved by me not mentioning it. Some of you, I don't understand how you even get to your conclusions about stuff. Well, if you would stop talking about it, it wouldn't be there. That's not how it works. This is still simmering underneath. It has quieted down because the people on the receiving end of the issue have decided, we're going to calm this down. We'll deal with this later. But it's still there. This is still there. And I still don't feel good about him sticking around. Call me negative. I hope I'm wrong. Someone said, why do you want him to leave? The way people handle opinions is baffling to me. I said on a radio show, I felt 95% chances that he would leave. And someone said, you stated it as a fact. I'm like, how do you state that answer as a fact? And it's an estimate on the chances of something. I mean, it's just clearly an opinion. I don't know. I still feel like there's work to be done to retain him. And if he stays, it's because of you guys and the students and the campus and the community. It's going to be, can he work with someone that handled something in a manner that he felt was unfair? Or does he need to move on? And my fear here is not only will this be a factor, but a school like Louisville might come and say, what do you get, $3 million a year? We'll pay you $6 million. We'll pay you $8 million.
I mean, it's the Moneyball thing, too. You could take away all of the issues that happened over the last 3 or 4 weeks, ever since the start of the season, really. You can take all of those issues away. If Jerome Tang is having a good season, it becomes, can K-State afford to keep him?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The best thing for the future might be a horrific season.
Even if none of this had happened over the last few weeks, K-State would still be in serious danger of losing their head coach because they just can't afford him. Nor do they want to pay him. I mean, nor is he worth the value. You can find a basketball coach that's going to win you games anywhere. It shouldn't be too hard to hire a basketball coach that is going to win you games in Manhattan, Kansas. But the other thing is, K-State hired a guy that has brought more energy to this university, to this city, to this state.
Exactly.
Then it's the same thing as what they did with Bill Snyder. It has re-energized this university. And I don't know if you can put a dollars and cents value on what he has meant over the last 18 months.
You can't. I don't know how you measure that. And what's interesting about this is that is something that Richard Lynn, the Kansas State president, addressed directly to my pal Glenn Kinley at last year's NCAA tournament. I think it was in New York. And he spoke of how the transformation in the community and the campus and the impact he's had on the student body is so important. And here we are. I think I want to see victories on the basketball court. I'm having fun covering sports that are winning. And it's good for business. Let's be honest. Bruce Weber was bad for business. I mean, the team was inconsistent, and my lack of enthusiasm for that type of basketball and the brand being played made people not want to subscribe to our business. Because, folks, I don't say things to generate controversy. I don't say things to go along to get along. I say things that I believe. If you can't handle that, this isn't the right place. But what I've really enjoyed is the fact that we have really, really good people leading athletics. Outstanding people, Gene Taylor on down. And that's why my job's good now. I don't want to deal with shit like we just went through. I don't. I want to just hum along and enjoy work. Covering sports, not news. And here we are. But I also don't back down from a fight. So there's parts of me that probably aren't smart about how I do things, but they're me.
Last question of the podcast. Hang on, Zach.
Oh, you got something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Zach, you were talking about the money aspect, and I know it's kind of apples and oranges here, but with Colin Klein, I know he's chasing something greater and he's trying to move up, but there was zero issues or bad blood or anything going on with him, and he's gone. So with Jerome Tang, there are issues, and there's also money that's being involved. So.
Right. I mean, my point was...
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and it backs up Fitz as well. 95%. Could that be off by a little bit? Sure, but there's a real threat that he could be gone. With the question here, with the dust being settled, Richard Linton's name was not included in the, on behalf of Richard Linton, we welcome you to Kansas State University. If this issue was settled, Linton's name would be included there, right? I mean, this issue is not settled at all. If things were fine and normal, his name would be included.
I just think
right.
We kind of came to this conclusion on the Insiders. Okay, didn't stop doing it. I've never heard another PA announcer thank everyone for attending the game because of the university president. It's just not something I hear typically on road games. Do you?
To be honest, I don't pay attention.
Right.
I couldn't name another university president right now in the Big 12.
That's true. Here's the thing is that's been part of the pregame tradition for as long as I remember. And either end it or don't skip it. Okay? So say from this day forward, we're just not going to do that anymore. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But by skipping it, you kind of send a message like, okay, well, we need to calm this down, but I don't think that's really what it was about. I think it was about, I don't want to hear the boos.
Oh, yeah. He didn't want to hear Naquan Tomlin's chants.
Yeah. But I just say, set it aside now and stop doing it. If they bring it back in 2 weeks, then I'm going to be mad.
But I think people are still going to boo.
Right, exactly. You didn't want us to boo 2 weeks ago, and now you've decided that we're going to boo now. Folks, this isn't solved. This isn't. It's solved in the fact that Naquan Tomlin's gone. He's at another program. That part of this story's moved on until he files a lawsuit. And I'm sorry, I think that's going to come at some point. But yeah, I mean, the underlying issue here wasn't Naquan Tomlin. It was how this was handled. And I don't know if you're going to pass judgment on a student or a coach or an employee and have them removed, sit down and talk to them. Have a conversation. I think it's the right way to do it.
Last question of the podcast from Itane Beebe. Is women's basketball criminally underappreciated given their record? And if so, what can be done?
I still can't figure out the rankings.
What are they right now?
They're 12.
12?
I mean, they have one loss to, I don't even know what Iowa's ranked right now.
Probably higher than 12.
Oh, much higher. They're top 5 probably. And they've got a win over that same team. Why this team isn't shadowing Iowa's ranking is a little confusing to me. But maybe they need to get into the Big 12 and start beating some programs that voters understand. Baylor, Texas.
Yeah, I think that you look at K-State's non-conference schedule and it just doesn't move the needle probably for these. I mean, it's if you look at the men's side of the game, you look at KU, you look at UConn, you look at Michigan State, Kentucky, Duke, all those teams are playing each other in the non-con.
Right.
And I would assume that there's probably still some of that in the women's game. Your UConns, your South Carolinas, your Notre Dames, the Iowas, Virginia Techs. Those teams are probably playing each other, at least one kind of marquee game. Yes, K-State has done that with Iowa the last 2 years. But I think there's probably a bit of a breakthrough that you need to join the club of playing these high level opponents and getting in, into that national conversation, so to speak. Yes, K-State beat Iowa. Their only loss is also to Iowa. They've proven, at least in that aspect, that they can compete, and they should probably be closer to a top 5 team than a top 15 team. But it's still early. Their non-conference schedule, it hasn't been a challenge to them. I think if K-State is 4 or 5-0 in Big 12 play, I think they shoot up pretty quickly. But, I wouldn't be concerned in December right now.
It's interesting you put it that way. Someone asked me, are you going to do a daily delivery on the women? Well, I did earlier. I did after they beat Iowa in Iowa City. I did one. It didn't play that well, but, maybe there was other things there. Are you chasing the clicks? Yes. Why do you think that's a bad thing? Why do you think giving customers what they want is a bad thing? Now, the implication here is you're just saying and doing stuff to get attention. But no, do we want engagement with the product? Yes, it's a business. I'll get back to that, but my exact same train of thought was what Zach pointed out here. The voters are probably waiting to get them into Big 12 play, to see them against more consistent competition. And by God, I'm doing the same thing with another DD. I thought about doing it after the Oral Roberts game, and I decided not to. I'm like, I have no clue if Oral Roberts women's basketball is worth a damn. I probably should do on a Yoki. I can't say her name. Why can't I speak anymore, Zach? Do I have cancer of the tongue? Do I have cancer of the thoughts? 53 career double-doubles is...
That's insane.
Nuts. But, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll do that. We'll keep chasing those clicks.
Yeah, if K-State women's basketball is good, and you guys read it, you guys watch it, yeah.
And we are
probably do some coverage.
We're doing more coverage. My nephew Ethan is out there doing some recaps and opinion pieces and analysis. Maybe we take the step of credentialing him. We'll see. Well, that's a discussion I need to have with him, because right now he's just kind of doing it as a fan. But you give that up once you wear that credential. So that's going to be something interesting. But we do have coverage of women's basketball and volleyball. Ethan loves them both. And he does that on Wabash Station for our VIP subscribers. Is that it for the podcast? Gills, you got anything more to add to any of this? Have you stopped bleeding?
Does it look like it? I think I have.
Yes.
I can't see my
There's
face.
no evidence of any sort of spot that you bled out of.
I think the most emphatic, important thing to come out of this podcast is Ryan Gilbert saying, I can't see my face. That's the end of the podcast. How do you top that?
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Get in on the action with the world's largest sports book, right at your fingertips. Circa Sports Iowa is where the pros play. Enjoy the highest limits, lowest takeouts, competitive betting menus, and the best customer service. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Iowa. Circa Sports Iowa. Sports betting the way it should be. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com for details.